Well, welcome everybody. Sorry about the wee hiccup in the beginning. I'm Rebecca Knowles, the Director of Stockfree Farming. Welcome to the fourth in our webinar series on soil, climate and nature-friendly food production and land use. That beautiful piece of music was Vivaldi's Four Seasons, and that was autumn. And it has been a very autumnal day here in Western Aberdeenshire. Anyway, tonight I'm absolutely thrilled to introduce Robert and Michelle Sullivan. Possibly at some point in our lives, some of us have had a fantasy about chucking in our day job, moving to the countryside, getting some land and starting to grow our own food and living the agrarian lifestyle. Well, Michelle and Robert did exactly that. I think it's 6 or 7 years ago now since they did that. And now they're not only growing their own food, but they have a thriving, self-supporting business. Well, I don't want to be a spoiler by saying too much more. In a moment, we'll welcome Robert and Michelle. But first, just a reminder, the chat will be off for the duration of the webinar. If you do have questions, and I hope you do, please put them in the Q&A and we'll ask Robert and Michelle the questions at the end. You can ask your question anonymously if you prefer to do that. So without further ado, please welcome Robert and Michelle Sullivan. And I'll just, there you are. Welcome, guys. Fantastic. So
Hello,
you should
everybody.
be able to, yeah, hi there. You should be able to share your screen just whenever you're ready to do that.
Okay. All right. We'll start this presentation. I hope everybody will be able to hear it and see it properly, and hopefully will be encouraged, maybe a bit inspired.
Yep.
And as Rebecca mentioned, at the end, we'll take any questions and hopefully do our best to answer and point you in the right direction.
Okay.
So
we'll go straight into the
presentation.
Okay.
Yeah, so just by way of intro, we run a company that we've called the Artisan Grower, and as you can see there, we grow. One of our strap lines is we grow veganically. We're local, and we grow produce. Yeah, I mean, because it may not be, but for us it is. And veganically, which we'll go into a little bit more, but just very quickly for us anyway, we're not vegans, we are plant-based, but it just means that we grow without using any animal inputs for fertilization mostly. So we don't use any manures or anything like that. We don't use any bones or ground up or feathers, fish blood, no, or anything like that. We just use what nature's got in its soil and other natural amendments, which we'll talk about as well. Yeah. But that's what we do. So we're the Artisan Growers. So we're just going to take you through a very brief little synopsis of
our journey,
very, very quickly, because it gives you the context for the rest of the presentation.
Okay.
It's and just let me just give you a precursor, sort of spoiler alert. Our lifestyle is not as conventional, I guess, as some, but you'll see anyway.
Well, we are Christians, and so we can't leave that part out of our story.
Yeah.
So
it's very
forgive us if anybody is offended by anything that we share, but we'll just go ahead and share.
We'll rattle along. Yeah. So just bear with us. We're going somewhere.
So, as we just said, we're Robert and Michelle Sullivan. And that's not Robert.
No, but
that is our logo.
Yeah, I do have dungarees like that.
He does. And boots.
And boots, yeah.
Okay, and so here's a little introduction into who we are. Robert and I, we've been married for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
We have 7 children.
Mm-hmm.
Robert was born in London and raised in Basingstoke, and I was born in Reading and raised in Reading. And we've actually been in Scotland now, it says 16 years, but actually that's a falsehood. It's actually 14 years.
Sorry about that.
I did a bit of calculation and I realised that I actually got that figure wrong.
Yeah, 14 years.
So as we said, our story is quite an unconventional story. We actually decided to move to the rural parts of Scotland after we decided to take our faith a little bit more seriously. And in so doing, we were reading from the Bible and from another book, or quite a few books actually, which pointed us towards rural living.
And really the joys of being in the country and living in the country and raising your children in the country. And to us, that sounded...
It sounds remarkable.
It sounds really, really nice, and we really fell in love with that whole idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it sounds very romantic.
It is very romantic.
So it hasn't always been romantic, but
No.
as you're trudging through mud, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway,
kids in tow.
That's right. So there was one in particular, there was one little book by a lady called Ellen G. White who wrote this book, and it's just called Country Living, and it's actually quite small. It's a little pamphlet, and I'd read it cover to cover a number of times, and it just basically pointed out all of the blessings, really,
all of the good things
of being in the countryside.
Yeah.
And that's what helped us to fall in love with that idea.
And let me just say straight off the bat, because I don't know who's at the other end of the screen, and I don't know where you live or anything. You know, if you've grown up in, you know, in rural parts of the UK or wherever, I don't know, you know, then it's fine. But you know, for us, we didn't, and
no,
so
we're city,
you know,
city kids.
We're city. So the idea of moving to the country and even thinking about living in the country was complete alien to us, and that's why when we were reading about it, we were like, this really sounds nice.
Well, actually, we moved from Reading to Milton Keynes first, and we actually thought we'd move to the country.
Yeah, we thought, well, Milton Keynes is very country-ish.
Then from Milton Keynes, we ended up in Northampton, and we thought that was even more country. And then we ended up in Scotland, and we realised that actually we really are in the countryside.
Yeah, which we are now.
That's right. And so one particular is that a message for us? One particular message that we had, that we read was this one. It says, there is not one family in 100 who will be improved physically, mentally, or spiritually by residing in the city. And then there was this other quote that said, faith, hope, love, happiness can far better be gained in retired places where there are fields and hills and trees.
That sounds nice.
Take your children away from the sights and sounds of the city, and their minds will become more healthy.
Yeah,
and we thought, wow, that
really sounds good. And we had, you know, at the time, our family was getting bigger and bigger, and so we were like, yeah, you know, because I remember when I was growing up, you know, there was a certain amount of freedom that you had, even growing up, you know, in London and then Basingstoke, which wasn't really a major city, but growing up, there was a certain amount of freedom that you had as a youngster. You can go and play anywhere. That's not the same nowadays.
No, it's not.
And so this is why we were looking for something different.
That's right. So we gave up 6-figure salaries, both of us. Actually, I gave mine up a little sooner because I actually began to homeschool the children, but Robert then sort of gave his up. And in 2008, we moved from what you can see on the left, a new property in Northamptonshire, to what you can see on the right, which is a farmhouse in Inverness-shire.
Clune.
So it's in an area called Clune, just near Tomartin.
And if you're from Scotland, you know, the house that you can see on your right is, you know, you're used to seeing that in the country. These things are littered all over the place.
Trees and hills and fields.
Trees and hills and fields, lots of fields, lots of farmers, lots of
right.
fields.
And so we did that so that our children could do a little bit more of this. I don't know if the volume's going to be too loud. Hold on one second.
Yeah.
So this is one of our children. He's just sort of on the property that we were in at the time was 1 acre
of
garden with a river that ran down the side. And so that we could do a little bit more of this.
And we really did a lot of this.
And so this is us on one of the locks, having some fun. And let's just turn that down a little bit.
Yeah.
And so that we could do a little bit more of this, or so that we could introduce our children to things like this.
This was a neighbour friend of ours who was running again, if you're from the country, you will understand this, a wood processing. But again, this was all new to us. But it was just being out in the country and enjoying fellowship with like-minded people, understanding their way of life and the things that they get involved with and the things that they see and do. Just being around that was really an eye-opener. And it was just nice, just a sort of a setback from the hustle and bustle
of
city life, on the tube, you know, on the bus, on the train, in the taxi, and all of that sort of stuff.
And obviously, boys love tractors, so
were just praying.
Our children were able to do a little bit of this.
Yeah. And it also kind of gave us a little insight into sort of the ups and downs of farm life, you know, the reality of real farmers, what they do and what they don't do, and how they rely on the tractors. And nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying, you know. But again, it just gave us a little bit of an insight. But anyway,
so we'll move on.
Moving on.
But after a while, we were having trouble with this.
After the honeymoon period.
Yes, which actually lasted a number of years, but then we needed to make some money.
Yeah, you still got to pay bills at the end of the day.
That's right. And so Robert had literally just finished a law degree as well, but that was no longer valid since we'd moved from England to Scotland, and we realised that
Scots law.
It was Scots law, and he would have to completely be trained, which would have been another, I don't know,
another 4 years.
Another 4 years or
At
something
least.
like that. So we realised, okay, we really need to put our heads down and think about what we're going to do. So we decided to go, well, as it says there, we didn't know what to do. So we went back to this book. And this book we went back to with new eyes, this time looking to see, well, is there anything written here about, you know, what kind of occupations people would do out in the countryside?
And lo and behold,
and agriculture was the answer.
It was talking a lot actually about agriculture, and not only was the book talking about country living, but it was also talking about the joys of working in a agricultural context, which was again very, very new to us.
Although ours didn't include the animal on the screen.
No, it's just to give you the picture.
That's right, it's just a picture.
Just a picture. Yeah.
So then the book said, if the land is cultivated, it will, with the blessing of God, supply our necessities. So I thought, wow, that sounds really good.
That sounds good. We could have some of that. Yeah.
And it also said, many are unwilling to earn their bread by the sweat of their brow, and they refuse to till the soil. But the earth has blessings hidden in her depths for those who have courage and will and perseverance to gather her treasures.
And we thought, just go back, we thought, well, we've got courage. We've got some will, and we're prepared
sweating.
to persevere. So it's like, that could work. We need to give this a try. So
we started to research.
We started researching. Because where do you start?
Where do you begin?
You start researching, and you look at everything. And the more we researched, the more we started looking at what we will call, and maybe you will understand it to be market gardening, which is really it's small scale growing of fruit and veg.
So we came across this gentleman, whose name is Jean-Martin Fortier, and that's his wife, and they are actually in Canada, and they are market gardeners. So we got our hands on his book. This is his book here, The Market Gardener.
Very, very good book.
That's right. Now, the methods that they use, however, isn't veganic, but we have kind of tweaked it so that we use their methods of growing, which is intensive, so that it's profitable on a smaller piece of land, rather than having to farm hundreds of acres to make a profit.
Just to make a profit. Yeah.
What he does is he shows you how you can use a small amount of land to create an equally good or healthy profit to keep a family and workers. And so we also did his masterclass as well. We did. And that was really helpful, as well as doing more research on YouTube, reading many more books, lots more seminars.
Books. You may have come across, and again, we can touch this in the questions and answers. Elliot Coleman, we read all of his books. He's really the forerunner for the whole market gardener sort of scene, as it were.
Curtis Stone as well.
And Elliot Coleman's based in America. And so we read all of these materials, researched as much as possible, and then just started experimenting and getting more and more involved. Because, as I said, this was the first time that we ever dug into the soil. I joke because I really hated mud. I ever since I was a kid, I never liked going on the school field when it was wet, the night before, because it'd all be sloshy.
I think it might have had something to do with his cousin one day was playing football and slid.
It was before that.
Or was it even before that? I thought it was because he slid and skidded through dog poo, and that put you off.
That put me off as well. That was like,
just
even
made
worse.
It worse.
Yeah. But anyway, the whole thought of just farming was not, when we say farming, agriculture farming, was not really on the books. But now we were reading this. Now we were researching. We thought, this is looking really doable, but we need to get our hands dirty and we need to get involved as much as possible.
And the thing is, you know, when we left the city to come to a rural location, we didn't come with a silver spoon in our mouth.
No.
We didn't sell a property and have heaps of equity and all of this.
Tens of
In
thousands
fact, it was
just
quite,
lying around.
it was quite the opposite. We actually had debts. So we were like, how are we going to be able to create an income that's going to provide for the family and at the same time clear some hefty debts that we had accrued? And so
literally starting with nothing.
Yeah, we weren't in the beginning we weren't convinced that farming was going to do that. But the more that we researched and the more that we read, the more we realized that this can work.
It is the way
it
forward.
Actually can work.
It definitely is the way forward.
So we obviously we did start work in the farm, but then that season ended quicker than we anticipated, and we hadn't really made huge profits initially. So we weren't sure quite what to do. And so, you know, obviously being Christians, we prayed about it, and it just came to us through some interesting experiences that we should grow microgreens. And so here we have our microgreen. This was a setup. Actually, it was in a dining room of ours.
Yeah. And when we started up, just to say, we only had one rack of microgreens. Here you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, probably about 5 or 6.
Yeah.
We had more than that anyway, but we only had one rack. And of that one rack, we only had like one shelf just full of microgreens. We only had a few trays because we didn't really know much, and we were just experimenting, and the experiments went really well. And so as we started, we just started with a few and then opened more and more and more, and yeah, till we reached a stage where every week we were exchanging, you know, probably about 10 shelves or whatever we were going to call these. I think we had about 10 of them or more actually. Yeah, each week of microgreens. So I wanted just to show you this, just to give you an idea of our setup. Microgreens, as you know or don't know, we were growing them indoors. We were also growing them with soil. Some people do hydroponically, but we had, from our research, we had found out that the smell and taste of the microgreens and the lifespan of the microgreens seemed to last longer when they were grown in soil. So we decided to keep with that versus growing hydroponically.
Yeah, it was a little bit messier, but
the product was a lot better,
far better result.
And at the time, we were all of our customers were all chefs, so we wanted to make sure, and you know, that the product that they were getting was a really, really good product, and it really did smell unbelievable, and it lasted like about 10 to 14 days in the fridge, which was quite unheard of. So sorry, just go back. This is a picture of the oh sorry, no, yeah, so this is pea shoots
that we've just
germinated.
As you can see here, they're all stacked on top of each other, and so once they pop like this, then we basically unstack them.
Yeah.
And then we will water them or spray them with a mixture, and to inhibit the growth of mold.
Yeah, because especially on pea shoots, if you've ever grown pea shoots, you'll know that they're prone to mold quite quickly, because they're not potentially you know, under the soil too much, and so that's why you get so we just use a solution to spray that with, and that works fine on them.
And so this here you can see is a nice healthy tray of pea shoots, and this is coriander. I think it is coriander. Yeah. Is it possibly? Yeah, it's been a while.
Again, it's just we just took the lids off.
Yeah, or it could be cress actually.
I was just thinking, I think it was like cress. It was cress.
Okay, and this is red amaranth.
This is red amaranth. Red amaranth, strangely enough, we didn't really do a lot of red amaranth because for us, it was hard to get that kind of sweet spot with red amaranth. So it would grow, but then just before we were ready to harvest it, it would just
start to die off.
It would just start to die. Very, very strange. But anyway.
And so here we have Rambo radish.
Rambo radish, one of our best varieties. And as you can see, the colors, they just look really, really nice. Really pungent, strong flavor. A lot of the chefs like the flavors and the colors. So we would do a lot of Rambo radish, China rose radish, because the flavors were there, very, very strong. And also pea shoots as well. But this and Rambo, the radishes, they would from seed to harvest is about 7 to 8 days. So it's a really quick turnaround. Peas is a little bit longer, about 2 to 3 weeks. But yeah, this is again is another just shot of the different. I can see cress, I can see rocket, and
more cress and some China rose.
yeah, and we also used to do. I'm not sure if the
Radish.
pictures there of cabbage as well. Now, something else that was really interesting when we started with the microgreens was that for us anyway, maybe for yourselves if you've done microgreens, you know this, but we didn't. Nobody had used sun shoots before, which is the picture on your right. And so, but a lot of people in America were doing sun shoots. So we started to do sun shoots, and these particular variety is black seed.
That's why
Black seeds. That's why the
seeds are
hulls are black, totally black. Nice variety, vigorous. They give a very, very good yield. Very, very good yield, and a nice earthy, nutty taste. You know.
Yeah.
The chefs would love it. What were you going to say?
No, I was going to say on the left we have
Yeah,
the basil.
go ahead. Yeah, the basil. Oh, the basil, you could smell it from like a mile. Okay, maybe not a mile. In fact, not a mile, but you could smell it from a distance, from the other side of the room. Definitely. This is Genovese, but we would do about 4 or 5 other varieties of micro basils as well.
And as it says, this is bespoke because often people would actually prefer to have a smaller leaf.
Yeah.
But for the Italian restaurant Contini in Edinburgh, they actually liked a larger leaf, and so this was
even though it was a microgreen, but they wanted a larger leaf. They wanted
it larger, so we would grow it on a little longer for them.
Yeah.
And so here's some more pictures of the pea shoots.
This is the pea shoots again that we would do. Pea shoots very very vigorous growth and very high yielding as well. You would find a lot of chefs go through quite a lot of pea shoots.
Yeah, that was probably one of our top sellers was pea shoots.
And these pea shoots are different to other pea shoots. There's 2 different types. This is the one with the tendrils. So you can see in the pictures they have these sort of squiggly
bits,
squiggly ropes, and so that's the pea shoots with the tendrils, and as averse to just the normal pea shoot.
Yeah. And then we have here nasturtium. Now, nasturtium was my little baby, actually, because I said to Robert, oh, let's grow nasturtiums. You didn't really seem too keen.
No.
But I bought the seeds anyway, and I germinated them, and I grew them. And when they grew, I just loved them. Yeah. And from that moment on, I always just loved growing nasturtiums.
They're really nice.
I always loved the way they looked. I always loved harvesting them.
Yeah.
The way they looked in the little boxes before we'd sell them.
Yeah,
they look like little umbrellas.
Yeah, that's right. And the yield on them is phenomenal. They would just keep going and going. If you've ever ate a micro nasturtium, you'll know they're very peppery. Eaten. Yeah. Eaten. If you've ever eaten a nasturtium, micro nasturtium, they're very, very peppery. Nice flavor. Again, chefs love them because you've got the flavor, you've got the look, slightly different colors. So yeah, that was the nasturtium. We're not going to go through all of them. We're just trying to give you a flavor for the types of things that we were doing. Now, this was a nice one.
Red vein sorrel.
It would take a long time
21
to grow.
days at minimum.
At least.
21 days.
But more than that, till you get ready to harvest. But it looks so vibrant.
Stunning, yeah.
It looks, I mean, I don't know about you, but it looks stunning. And when chefs would put that on their, when they would plate up, it would just look really, really nice on a dessert. So,
sorry.
Right, okay. Yeah. We'll move on then. My wife's finger is clicking.
Yeah, because we need to get into the farm.
Yeah.
So here's lemon balm as well. We have some lemon balm.
Yeah.
And they would use that on desserts as well.
Yeah, again, very, very strong tasting. So this is just a little
It's a very primitive setup, as you can see.
Very primitive.
I think we've got another.
But it did what it needed to do.
There's a dehumidifier there and fly swatting
fly
lights.
Squatter at the top.
Yeah. We'd have to keep.
Sorry, go on.
We'd have to keep the temperature. I think it was about 21 degrees or something.
24 degrees,
and
something
the
like that.
humidity had to be kept quite, quite low.
Just to make sure that everything's just to make sure that everything's nice. I mean, actually, this is a newer picture because later on, what I did was I put the dehumidifier. I put it on a.
We put it into a very large bucket.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah, and it would just empty out
by itself
instead of me having to change it every day or two. So that was quite nice. But just you can go back
So this
again.
is more, oh, you want to go back?
Yeah, so as you can see there, you've got, for these racks now, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got 5 growing heights,
And then
which
got
is different to
1,
the
2,
3.
3.
Yeah, we've got
rows.
3 in there, but now you can go from the top to the bottom on the right-hand side of that picture, and you can see 5 racks. So again, if you can get those type of racks or anything like that, then you can get a lot of produce coming out of a small space.
Yeah, and it's quite profitable. It's a
Yeah, you got to
profitable...
remember that on average we were doing £3 a tub, and on average a tub of microgreens would hold about 30 grams. And for the pea shoots they would be 100 grams, but for everything else it would be 30 grams. So 30 grams for
I think 20 grams for the red amaranth
red vein sorrel, because
yeah.
they were quite light and quite small. But for 30 grams, £3, that's pretty good going. Pretty good going.
And so that's it packaged up there.
Yeah, all ready to go.
And just to remind you guys, I mean, we hadn't had any previous experience of anything in this.
No.
I mean, I come from, in fact, we forgot to mention this at the beginning. Oh, sorry, excuse me.
Sorry.
So we had, I had come from a project management background within telecommunications, and Robert had come from like business consultancy within telecommunications. And then when the tech bubble bursts, when the Twin Towers went down,
everything changed.
Yeah, everything really changed. And I mean, I turned to homeschooling anyway, and things just got quite difficult. And so that's why Robert decided then to study law. And so we're paper pushers, you know, we're not in the mud. You know, I'd never grown anything previously.
No, exactly.
Well, I grew a tomato plant in our dining room for, it was like for our, what was then a 3-year-old, and it only bared or bore, whatever, how you want to put it, as one small little cherry tomato, which he, as soon as it was ready, he just plucked it off and ate it before I even had chance to take a picture of it.
That was that.
And that was probably about as much as our experience went.
Yeah. But what we found with the microgreens, I think it was a good way in to small scale agriculture, because with the because on average you've got a product that's ready to sell every week that you can turn around, and if you make a mistake it's going to take a week to rectify it. It's quite forgiving, you know, versus let's just say you're growing cabbages or wheat or barley or broccoli or anything. Well, you know, you've got a 90-day, you know, if you're growing cauliflowers, you know, you could have up to 120 days. And if you get it wrong, then that's you know, to start again, that's a couple of months. You may even miss the season. You may even miss the season. So with this, it's like every week is a season. So it was quite nice. And as I said, it caused you to be quite adaptable, and the products themselves were quite flexible. They didn't mind, you know, if they didn't get watered one day or anything like that. So it did help.
When we were delivering microgreens to a lot of our clients, they were asking for violas,
edible flowers.
Well, edible flowers, yeah. And the reason was because, you know, the quality of the microgreens was so good, because we would harvest on the morning of delivery, whereas our competitors, microgreens would be coming from England, and by the time they've gone from England to Glasgow wholesale, from Glasgow wholesale to the, you know, local wholesaler, and then from there to the restaurant and chef, it's kind of half dead, wilted, and the quality was, you know, they're just picking out the best of the leaves, and so it's just such a waste of money and time and resources. And so when they saw the quality of the microgreens, they were begging us for edible flowers, and it's not something we'd ever really considered. And so we started to grow edible flowers, and that became one of our most profitable crops, funnily enough.
Yeah, that's right. They just went crazy.
And so here they are.
Yeah, they went crazy.
And again, I think it's £3 for the 5 gram tub.
Yeah, which isn't a lot considering how many edible flowers you get. And for violas, if you've grown violas, you will know this, but we didn't even realize they're pick and pick again.
Yes. You just keep picking them and they keep coming.
They just keep coming. So it's like, wow, that's really good.
And so in the little containers that we use for the microgreens and for the violas are 100% recyclable as well. Yeah. So this is how some of the produce would be used within the restaurant industry. So this is Avo. In fact, they're no longer, but this is how they used to use the microgreens on the top there, and the violas is some of the chefs that would use. I think here, if anybody you know, aware of chefing people in this area. The guy on the left is Graham Mitchie. He's part of the Scottish culinary team. So, and I think he was the head chef for the Trump golf course. And then he, that's one of the guys that he works with. And he recommended us to his friend that was over at Rothersae Rooms in Ballater, which I believe was kind of funded by King Charles. It used to be the Prince of Wales, but it's now King Charles. And so our microgreens were going weekly into Rothersae Rooms and many other places all over.
Too many to
about
mention.
7-8 different towns in Scotland.
And it was all word of mouth. We didn't do any advertising.
No.
I mean, obviously we were on Instagram, and when we post on Instagram, it automatically goes to Facebook. We don't do anything on Facebook, but it automatically goes there. But we didn't do any advertising. Everything was just word of mouth, because the industry is quite small, in as much as everybody knows everybody. So if you've got a good product, we were finding that you know, we were getting calls because people had heard, oh yeah, I heard you're supplying my mate and he said the product's good, so can you supply me? You know, we'd be like, well, yeah, I guess we can.
Okay, and so here on the right, now we're getting into the actual field. We have some sun gold tomatoes which we had grown, and they were absolutely phenomenal.
If you've grown,
yeah,
go ahead.
One of the sweetest tomatoes on the brick scale. They have the highest sugar content. So yeah. They were very delicious. One of the sweetest
in the world.
That's right. And so then here we have some, because we were doing a veg box, and we had the wee box, the family box, and the bumper box. And this is some of the produce that we grew and went into the boxes.
Yeah.
Again, they were grown 100% veganically. So we, as we said before, we didn't use any blood, bones. What? We don't even know what they're called. Fish.
Yeah. Guts. Feathers.
I don't think they use guts. I think it's cow manure. That's it.
Yeah, we don't use it.
Yeah. So so basically, instead we would use seaweed meal. In fact, we use a lot of horse feed.
Yeah, alfalfa.
Yeah, organic alfalfa pellets. With
a lot of seaweed.
We put that out into the beds, and it would just disintegrate slowly over time. What else would we use? Multimite, I think it's like a seaweed.
Yeah, again, it's just mainly seaweed. Then there was different variations of seaweed, different strengths. And this, that, the other.
There was another product that we had. Oh, we should have written it down for you guys, but it was basically made with non-GMO, organic soya beans, cacao shells, etc., and a whole heap of other things, molasses and some other things that you could
like a meal. It was like a meal.
That's right. This one wasn't a horse feed, actually. This one was specifically for growing. I mean, it came from the Netherlands,
but it was plant-based.
Yeah, but it had a nice high nitrogen content. It was everything about it was really, really good, and we would use that in our tomato tunnel.
Yeah, that's right.
So
I don't think that was a blue bait scale, but anyway.
So we move on. We then obviously began to gain a little interest, and the BBC contacted us at one point as well to feature our farm on Escape to the Country. And I think what interested them was the fact that we grew veganically. They were just quite intrigued by this, and so they said, oh, could we come to your farm and film, because we're going to be in Aberdeenshire, and we like to feature some local businesses. And so they came out. This is us here with Sonali Shah and the rest of the film crew. And so they really were quite interested in what it was that we were doing.
And how we were doing it.
And so I think they are still showing this, aren't they? I think it still may be, you may still be able to see it on BBC iPlayer. But I think, how many years has it been? It's been a few years they've been showing it.
Yeah, it's been a couple of years.
So then we got a little bit more interest, and we had the team for Pharrell Williams. They were doing a video to celebrate black businesses. And so they asked to feature us, which we thought, why would they want to farm on their video? But hey, whatever then. And so they asked us to shoot a few things, because it was sort of towards the end of the pandemic, or during the pandemic, and they had trouble getting the film crew out. So we agreed, because we did some other filming as well for BBC. It was a different program, I can't remember the name of it. And so we said, well, we could we're happy to film. So we filmed and sent them the footage, but we didn't think they were going to use it. But then in the end, well, we watched the whole thing,
And we're like,
then
oh,
we were
they
like,
haven't.
oh, they didn't use
They
it.
didn't
Never
use
mind.
it.
Oh, okay. And then right at the end, we were like, wait,
Oh,
isn't
that us right
we
in the
saw
corner?
us, yeah.
Yeah, right
And
in the.
That's right. And so that just gave a lot more publicity and interest to veganic growing and our farm on a whole in general.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And then, you know, things never go smoothly. We ended up with a very
unfortunately
contentious neighbor, let's put it that way, who had, you know, she owned the track that ran between our house and the field. And she had decided that she got the ump with us and we hadn't done anything, not that we know of, not that she'd made us aware of. And she said that she didn't want us to take the hose across the track into the field. And so we said, oh, but, you know, we're growing in the field. How are we going to be able to irrigate the farm? Oh, well, you have to just go over there with buckets then, won't you? Was her answer. And we were like, huh? And so, you know, we were just, this kind of toing and froing went on for a good couple of years, didn't it? And she was just trouble, and to the point where she even contacted social services on a few occasions to report us. On one occasion was because our 12-year-old son was riding the tractor, his little compact tractor that we'd recently bought at the time, and social services like, I don't see a problem with this. But then I think he was 12, I can't remember, there was like a crossover where he needed to be another age and he was a week away from that. So she said, you know, since they've reported it, just keep him off the tractor. When he has his birthday, you can put him back on. And so that's what happened in the end. And then just other silly things, you know, and contacting SEPA, Scottish Environment Protection Agency, and the Environment Agency, and food safety standards, the police, you name it. She just called everybody about everything for different reasons. And we were just exasperated by it all. And as we said already, being Christians, we just prayed about the whole situation.
Lord help.
A few days later, we had a contact, somebody contact us from McDonald Hotel and Resorts. It actually happened to be the CEO, or the recently appointed CEO, Tara O'Neill. Long story short, she said that, you know, that she'd seen us in these different, you know, social media, you know, and the newspaper, because it'd come up in the Times and the Telegraph and even African news. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
it just went all around the world.
African, but anyway,
it went all around the world. And she contacted us and she said, oh, we really love your story. We really love your brand. And, you know, the way that you're farming and everything that you're doing, it's such a, you know, it's really, really good. And she said, you know, we were just wondering whether you would be able to help us set up a farm on one of our estates. She said, or failing that, you know, if you'd up for it, we would love to have your farm come and actually farm on our land. You know, we see ourselves as landowners, da-di-da-di-da. And in fact, just 2 miles around the corner, we have a hotel there that's 2,500 acres. Perhaps you could go and check out the land and see if there's anything that would interest you. And we were like, wow, this is amazing. What a blessing. So we had a meeting with Mr. McDonald. We went and we saw. We had a meeting with Mr. McDonald, and the rest is history. We now farm 10 acres, which is a lot. It might not seem like a lot for general farming, but it is,
especially as a market garden, and especially intensive.
Yeah, but it is actually quite a lot for a market garden. But the financial potential is amazing, and we've already been realizing some of the benefits financially with our first year farming there. Although we lost quite a lot of time because we had to set up a lot of the infrastructure, and so the farm is not beautiful. It's just quite a mess because we've still got a lot of organizing, and it's like anything. It's like moving into a house that hasn't been cared for,
or a new build.
Yeah, and so the ground needs subduing to some degree. It's very weedy, and there's a lot of dock and just slugs and just all sorts of things because it's just really not been doing anything. So, you know, but we're so thankful for that opportunity. And so about 4 weeks after that, we had also a contact from ESS, which is one of the largest catering companies. In fact, they're part of Compass Group, which is one of the largest catering companies in the world, actually. They're on the stock market, etc. Contract catering. And so this division contacted us, Defence, Energy, Government, and what else do they do? There was offshore. Anyway, so they contacted us and asked if we would agree to partner with them and if our farm would grow local produce for their units
as well.
And so we were like, and that was as well as actually McDonald's asking us to grow for their hotels.
Well.
And so we haven't started to supply the McDonald hotels yet, but we have begun to supply ESS, and our veganic produce has been found. If you've ever been to the Aberdeen Airport Lounge, our produce has been there. It's gone down to the Ministry of Defence at Whitehall. It goes offshore to a lot of the rigs. It goes off to the wind farms, and it's basically supplying delicacies for the folks that are stationed there. And that's just that's not, there's a lot more places obviously that it goes to, but I don't know. I think from my understanding that the team that we work with, they often do a lot of the food catering for the royal family. They did COP27. They did the Queen's funeral and things like that. So so the veg goes far and wide.
Yeah.
And so here we are with some of the team. That's Robert and myself, with Graham. He's in the middle. He's also part of the Scottish culinary team. And Barry here as well. And so this is some of the produce that has gone to them. As you can see on the right, it's not 100% clean bed. It's grass coming through and some weeds, but we use weed control fabric
to mitigate, because obviously we're not using pesticides.
Obviously we don't use pesticides or insecticides or any of these sides. We haven't had to use anything. We wouldn't use anything that's not natural to use. As much as possible. That's right. So this is the lettuce mix that we have sent them. And then there's some kale in the back, and then we have some beautiful weeds on the side.
But who cares?
They don't bother us too much.
No, we're harvesting veg.
And so here we have some lovely Atina polka, sort of yellow courgettes that have gone off to these folks, gone off to the team. This is some of the infrastructure, because ESS actually invested some money, because we got onto this 10 acres and we were like, okay, this is great. Now what? We've got one little tiny nursery. I don't know, we've got all this land. We've only got one little compact tractor. How are we going to manage? And so this was just another blessing.
So these tunnels, just again to give you context, they are
100 foot.
Well, let me give you 2 meters. They're 9 meters wide and they're 30 meters length. And there's 3 of those. 3 of these particular type. What this picture here is us just about to put up the doors. Yeah, we call it our strawberry tunnels.
Yes, and the sides can come up.
Yeah,
so you can let some heat out in the height of winter. The height of summer.
Yeah, they're a caterpillar type design, as you can see, with the ropes going crisscrossing atop And
then we have another tunnel. Did you get a picture of the other tunnel?
I didn't actually.
Okay, we have a hot house as well.
Yeah, for our tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers.
Yeah, we have a tomatoes.
Which again is 9 meters by 30.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so here's...
Nice and wide, as you can see.
Here's Robert in there with our little compact tractor.
Yeah, and that's what we use to prepare the beds, rotivate, turn them over. If any amendments are needed, put that in, and then cover with weed control, and then plant our transplants, and then water.
That's right, yeah.
Irrigate.
And so here we go. Here we have kale. This is a tunnel full of kale, and again we use the weed control fabric. And the weed control fabric is great because it's reusable.
I mean, they're meant to last for like 20 years or so.
You can just
keep reusing them.
Yeah, if you just take care of them year after year, you can use them.
Yeah, because they don't break or anything.
That's right. And so we burn holes. Oh, you said you had a video.
No, I didn't. I was trying to get the video.
We have a video because Robert created a stencil with some plywood, and we laid that over. It's got holes pre-drilled, and then we come with a what's it called, like a blowtorch thing, and we kind of burn the holes with the spacings that we want, because different crop need different spacing. Now our kale, as you can see, this is quite intensive spacing. This is not the norm for people that may grow in their garden, or maybe a big field farm,
or even a field. They're not going to do it like this, and this is part of the intensive method. So in our bed for kale, we're getting 4 rows in every bed, and they are 6 inches apart, I think. 6, 12, 8, about 6 or 10 inches apart, somewhere around there.
Like that.
So very intensive, very intensive.
And so this again is very, very messy. However, we have harvested.
We just cropped out the whole bed of little gem lettuce,
and they did look beautiful. In fact, we should have put the picture.
I should have put the picture.
Should have put the picture of them when it looks like a complete mess, but by the time you've taken the little gem, taken off the outer leaves, there's a lot of food left, obviously, for the compost bin. But
or not even in the compost bin, because what we do is we just rechurn the left material. We churn that back in. So it's kind of like what do you call it?
Acting like a green manure, really.
It's kind of acting like a green manure. It is actually.
That's right. And it adds a bit more nitrogen to the soil, and it feeds the plants. So and then here is our messy nursery. And
just showing how we do the starts, how we get those going.
And
I think the bigger ones they're the courgettes. They're just getting ready.
And so we have what we did is we got a heat. We created our own heat mat.
Which is about 5 meters long. It's quite long. It's quite big.
And we made it using underfloor heating.
Why not?
So the table is like underfloor heating.
Does the trick.
Then we covered it, and it's got a little thermostat and everything, and it works wonders.
Everything that we need, the hot loving stuff that we need to germinate, it does everything. Tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, you name it.
This was actually quite early on in the season, because on the left side of the nursery,
the
table goes all the way along to the back door as well. And so this is later on now. Unfortunately, our door had fallen down in the back of the tunnel there, but this is the courgette in the 3rd tunnel.
Fully pumping.
This is the height of the season.
As you know, if you've grown courgettes, we learn as much as you pick them, they just keep growing back. So there's a couple hundred, I can't remember exactly how many plants there are in there, but there's a good few hundred. And so there was a lot of courgette plants coming out of there every week, green and red. Sorry, green and
red.
Green and red.
New.
Green and yellow. Those were the varieties, as we said.
So we focused on some of the pictures here are focused on, excuse my voice, stuff that's in the tunnel, but we also have things in the field as well. We don't have pictures of everything.
No.
Just try and keep it within the time. But again, even in the field, we just rely again on alfalfa meal and seaweed and anything else we can get our hands on. There's probably things that we're forgetting or that we've missed. We also will use worm castings
once you can get them,
because they're natural. Is something that is found naturally in the soil, and it's beautiful to work with. And they've actually found that worm castings have a higher compost. That when they do the analysis, it has everything, it scores higher than just standard average compost. And so if we can get more worms into the soil, and also out of season, if you can tarp the soil, which is basically where you take a large sheet and you place it over and allow, in fact, people do this on their allotments with old piece of carpet and hessian backed carpet.
We just do it on a bigger scale.
We do it on a larger scale, and then you literally just leave it over the winter, and then the worms will just come and they'll just churn up everything and take it under and add back to the soil the things that are required and that are needed.
So you're working with nature, as much as possible. That's what we're trying to do. Obviously, certain things it slows down a little bit, but other things it's fine. And
we're also researching some new techniques for dealing with issues with the soil, for example, like the dock, weeds and slugs, without actually harming the soil. And one of the things that we're actually looking into at the moment is actually steaming the soil. And so we're researching this to see if it's something that could be viable for us. It's been used apparently for a good number of years, and it can help
since the 40s.
And it can help to add nitrogen to the soil, reestablish increase the mineral levels that are found within the soil. It can help to kill the slugs, but if you do it to a certain temperature, it can keep the microbiome of the soil, but at the same time kill the weeds. And the dock is really what we're dealing with, because we have a field of dog. It's just no joke, the amount of dog that we have in this field. And so it will get down to the tubers of the dock and basically, burst the tubers. Depending on how long, as I said, we're still doing quite a bit of research, but as and when we get this down and you know, we need to drum up the funding to buy the equipment, because the equipment can be up to about 40 odd grand, but it will be well worth it because we can have nice clean beds. Because at the moment, unfortunately, we're unable to produce things like rocket or a direct seeded crops, and that's literally where we go through with the seeder, and the seeder will drop seeds every sort of say inch or two, quarter inch or something. So it's very dense and it's very close. But with the type of soil that we're dealing with, and the fact that it is so weedy and
the weeds just come up really quick.
Yeah, and so we'd end up with a situation where we would be harvesting rocket with weeds, and it's just not you know, it's just not viable. So we've taken rocket and some of those direct seeded products off of our list for now, and we're looking into getting this steaming machine so that we can steam the soil, kill the weeds, and deal with some of the issues that we have, so we can have nice clean beds. And it only needs to be done once a year, and then we can start to churn out some of these closer growing crops without the use of weed control fabric. And so to end our story, we came in with debts, and we still do have some debts, but
we can pay our bills.
And you know, this coming year will probably be the first year that we look to take on about 2 to 4 members of staff. So we're growing, you know, and you know, in terms of trying to regain a 6-figure income is definitely a viable option for veganic growing here in rural Scotland. And so that's the end of our slideshow.
Yeah,
so
indeed. So that's
this is our details at the back. So if anybody has any you know, if they have any questions, further questions outside of the questions that we'll take this evening, they're welcome to get in contact with us. We are on Facebook and Instagram. So yeah, we'll just stop sharing now, and we will go over to our host. Just bear with us a second. I'll take off my microphone for a moment. Yeah, and we'll stop the share.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. It was just mind-blowing, all that you've accomplished in your journey. I'm just absolutely amazed. So let's have a look at the questions. Sam, do we have some questions in the Q&A for Robert and Michelle?
Yes, we do. Yeah, our first question's an anonymous question. Really great talk. Thanks a lot. What is the mixture used for the mold on the pea shoots?
Yeah,
vinegar and H2O2.
Yeah, it's what did you say it was?
It's white vinegar and H2O2.
Yeah.
Is there water in there as
well? I think there's
and
water
some
in
water.
there.
It's probably something we could, if you message us,
we could give you the ratios.
We could give you the ratios as well, but that's not here.
I can't remember the ratio off the top of my head.
You didn't put it in the Google Drive, no?
No, I didn't.
Okay. So yeah, but it's basically white vinegar, H2O2 or hydrogen peroxide, food grade.
It's all food grade.
And water.
Great. Okay. We've got a few questions from Linda Jones. First of all, I'm interested to know whether you were brought up with the Adventist Church or to your faith later in life. It's clear that you're in tune and really live your faith. Apologies if I appear nosy. And she also asks, my husband and I have recently moved to the Highlands in a small crofting community. We're looking at what we can grow to sell once we have finished building our house. Microgreens look really interesting. How did you build your client base, and are they buying from you year round?
Wow, that's a lot of questions, isn't it? Look, we've got.
Yeah.
I nearly got knocked in the head by the light there.
Yeah.
I forgot about.
Just bear with us 1 second.
Let me just open this. Hold on. Okay, so the first question. What was the first question?
Yeah, to do with our faith. Were we Seventh-day Adventists? And the answer is, as Christians, we are Seventh-day Adventist Christians. So. Yes.
Well spotted.
That's
we weren't here to try and evangelize, so we just try and keep it, you know.
Yeah.
We just share our story and leave it like that.
Yeah. But in terms of the specifics to do with the microgreens and getting customers, what I would do is, well, this is what I did, and it worked for us. It's just an idea. So first of all, we experimented with microgreens, and when we had it so that we could grow them, we were doing like, I think 3 varieties. That's all we started off with. I think it was Rambo radish, actually it was 4. Rambo radish, China rose radish, peas, and sunflower. And that's all we were doing. So we experimented, and when we got it down that we knew it was good, then we said we're going to go to Edinburgh, because I knew that there were lots of like chefs and stuff like that. And I said that we would just drive up there and then just pop in to the restaurant and ask to see if the head chef is there. And if the head chef was there, then I would just literally just like, look, we do microgreens. Here's a sample. We've got it here in our hand, and let them smell it, let them taste it. And that's how it just took off from there, literally like that. A conversation that took no more than about 2 minutes.
Now, we did have another situation that took place, and we found that we were actually, our budget was under by about £400 each month towards the end of our growing season, our first growing season. And, you know, it was actually a bit of an answer to a prayer that we were just struggling. We were like, what are we going to do? And so we decided to contact one of the wholesalers in Glasgow. But it was only to find out how much microgreens they get through. That was really all we were just trying to find out.
Because we wanted to know how big the market was for microgreens. It's one thing growing it, but yeah, are you actually going to sell it?
Yeah, we just decided to just do some research. But when we called up to find the answer to that question, we happened to have gotten through to the MD. And then the MD basically said, oh, you grow microgreens, why don't you come down and we can have a chat? So we went down there and had a chat with him. We didn't even know what, it was just a thought. We didn't even know what we were doing, what even to say, you know. But all I know is we were in and out within about 10-15 minutes. It was all a bit of a whirl. And when we came out and we got into the car park and got pen and paper out, we realized we walked away with a deal to supply them £2,000 worth of microgreens a month.
Yeah. Yeah, and that wasn't all of the microgreens, because they didn't want to overwhelm us, because they knew that we had just started.
Yeah.
So he just said, just do a few of them that were on a big long list. So
we took the easy ones, didn't we?
We took the easy ones. So to answer your question, the market is as big as you want it to be. There are a few people, even in Scotland, that we know up this side that are doing it. But again, there's lots of customers. There's lots of customers.
And you know, we didn't want, because I felt a bit nervous, because initially a lot of our microgreens were going there and weren't really going anywhere else. And so, you know, we sort of felt that if they pulled this contract, we're going to be left by it, you know, on our own. We don't want all our eggs in one basket. And so that's when Robert decided, well, why don't we just go knock a couple of doors? Let's just go in and just say, oh, would you like to try some of these microgreens? We sell microgreens. And it just turned out that they always took them, because, as we mentioned, the quality was just so drastically different to the quality that they were used to.
Yeah. So again, experiment and you know, just be prepared to knock a few doors and have some conversations and let it be sort of customer led. That's what I would suggest.
But then after that, after we knocked a couple of doors, after that we never had to.
No.
It was just word of mouth from then on.
Yeah, right. I've got one more question from Linda, actually. How difficult were or are the environmental health requirements around food production of microgreens? Were you or are you still inspected regularly? And what is the most difficult requirements to meet, if there is any?
It was easy, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's a good question. Again, yeah, it was very, very easy, because when we had our first inspection, to be honest, I was a little bit worried, because I didn't know what they would say.
We've never had an inspection before. We didn't even like, know what to expect of the inspection.
Yeah, and in my mind, I was thinking about what's the other thing that people used to sprouts, because I know that in the past sprouts have got a kind of a bad name, because you know,
E. coli.
So I was a little bit concerned, thinking that, oh, they may think microgreens are sprouts, so they may really come down on us quite hard. But we didn't have to do anything.
Well, you know, the lady, she just said, oh, I just need to come out and see you. So we were like, oh, okay. So, you know, we did our usual, you know, we cleaned up and made sure that everything looked presentable. And literally she just sort of came in the house, she came in the room, she looked around the room, she asked a couple of questions, and then she said, yeah, she said it's fine, it's not a problem at all, it looks great. We did she even ask to see our labels? I think we anticipated that she might have.
Yeah, and I think we had printed out some extra stuff. I think we had
some, yeah, and I think that was about it really.
And then we got the pass certificate.
Yeah, we got the pass certificate. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess, you know, if you've done anything to do with food or what have you, be prepared just in case. But in our understanding, it wasn't really a big deal. Not that, you know, you can just, you know, have a dirty place or anything like that. But I'm just saying it wasn't a big stringent deal.
If you're keeping a good standard of cleanliness
and records, which everybody would do anyway.
Yeah. So it wasn't a problem at all.
Yeah.
Cool. So we got a couple of questions from Amrit. First of all, what are the weed control sheets made from?
Yeah, good question. The weed control sheets, I believe they're like a plasticky type something.
Yeah, they are plastic.
They are plastic. You can't get away from that. There isn't any weed control that's any other material but plastic. I think it's like a propylene or what have you.
Polypropylene.
Polypropylene. Yeah. And I think that's why it probably lasts for such a long time, you know, which is for some people who don't want to use plastic, I can see the concern, but then there isn't any weed control that isn't polypropylene.
That would work. That would work well.
Yeah, that would work well.
We tend to get quite a heavyweight one, so that we can reuse and
just keep reusing it. Yeah. So again, as I said, they've got like quite a long lifespan.
Very long lifespan. Yeah.
Yeah. So so it is polypropylene
it's the same type of stuff that you would put underneath your gravel on a drive if you were going to re-gravel a drive. So it's quite heavy. It's quite hard wearing, quite heavy duty.
Yeah.
And they also ask, how do you deal with flies? I think you mentioned it, but I missed it. Thanks.
Flies?
Yeah, so with the microgreens, we were using an actual, what they call like an electronic fly zapper. I don't know if that's what he was talking about anyway.
Actually, now that you could say that, the environment person that came out, the food safety person, they did say that we could put screens on the windows to stop flies from coming in.
So you don't really need the zapper.
Yeah, although we did have the zapper anyway. And then in the field, we use insect netting and fleece as well.
Yeah.
So we use those to keep flea beetles out of the crop, you know, cabbage butterflies and things like that. We'll use insect netting and fleeces.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Got a question from Liz Ross. Why did you decide to go the veganic route? Many Seventh-day Adventists are vegetarian and vegan, so I'm wondering if your decision was connected to your faith, or was it just more practical to exclude animal-based input?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And my thing, I mean, we've been plant-based for forever and a day. Before plant-based came into style, we were plant-based. But I was always, when we first thought about growing, initially we were thinking of you know, like everybody else, using manures and all this sort of stuff, and I just thought,
well, actually it was me. I said to you, because when we were going to start, you know, I said, oh, we need to try and get our hands on a good supply of horse manure, cow manure and stuff like that. And he just sort of looked at me. He was like, no, we can't. I don't. So we're going to put cow manure, horse manure in the ground. It's going to go up into the veg, and then I'm going to eat it.
Yeah, I
couldn't get his head around that one.
Like that.
And so I was like, yeah, but you have to. You can't grow without it. And he was like, no, I'm going to do some research. I'm sure you can. And I was just like, well, you know, in my mind, I was thinking he'll soon come back to me and say, okay, let's get this horse manure or this cow manure.
But then I realized, no, there is another way. It's not a big way, but there is another way. And
he came to me and I was like,
yeah,
oh, you actually found that you can do it. And he was like, yeah. I was like, okay, well, let's you know, let's give it a go.
Yeah, and we've never looked back really.
No.
So yeah, and obviously there's lots of benefits, and it's all part of the whole bigger picture, you know, of the planet and being sustainable and all this kind of thing. But it was really, from a practical point of view, first of all.
I mean, we're always looking for ways that we can improve, you know, even thinking about the whole weed control fabric, you know, if we get to the point where the steamer works,
then we
may not need weed control fabric, which will save us an arm and a leg, because we've spent thousands on this stuff, you know.
Or if some bright spark decides he can come up with a weed control fabric that's made of chewed up coconut husks.
But you can get that.
Then we'll do that. But at the moment,
there is one that's made from some kind of cornstarch. I think we have seen that. It's made of cornstarch, and people use it a lot in the States, and you can get it quite cheaply. And I know you can get it here.
Yeah, it's not weed control.
It's more biodegradable.
Yeah,
I mean, dock will just come up through that because it's so thin.
Yeah.
But they tend to use it to heat the ground, and it's usually used for heat-loving products or produce, in particular like watermelons and melons and things like that.
Yeah, that's right.
But
I've seen it.
but dock would just laugh at that. They would. But we think that perhaps we're really hopeful that the whole steam generator we think that's going to be a really good viable way to go forward, and it will make us even more sustainable to a certain extent.
That's right.
You know, and it might use some fossil fuels, but you know,
there's always a trade-off.
You know, there are electric ones, I think, that they can do. So you know, it's work in progress. You know, we're always looking at ways to improve. You know,
that's right.
Great. And Les Ross says, well, you're both fantastic and inspiring. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we got a question from Lawrence Candy. Are you veganically certified, and have you been able to add value to your produce being veganic? He also adds, with regards to the docks, have you checked the pH of the soil? Docks thrive in a low pH soil. Also on the other lands, try and grow some spring oats because they are good at cleaning the grounds, having done this on my own farm.
So on their farm, they are using the oats to help to tackle dock. Is that what's being said, or to tackle the pH?
Potentially both, because I think they were saying that the docks thrive in a low pH soil, so I think it means the oats will raise the pH.
I think I have read something like that before. Again, so we're open. It's all experiments at the moment, so we could probably look into that a little bit more. So we appreciate that. On the first point about being veganically registered, no, we haven't registered with anybody for any veganic association or certification or anything like that.
I think it kind of started in America, didn't it? I'm not sure if there is even a veganic.
I don't know.
If there is, let us know. But we didn't know that there even was. So.
And in terms of like a value add, I mean, it's a value add to some people. I mean, obviously to some people,
but not to everybody.
No, it's sort of like organic. Some people get it and they're prepared to pay for it.
And some people are just not.
Some people, they just don't see it. But all of our customers that we have, clearly they do, and that's why. I mean, you know, for Compass, at the end of the day, that's what they wanted. If they just wanted anybody to supply fruit and veg, I mean, you know, anybody can supply fruit and veg. That's quite easy to do. Conventional farmers do that all day long. So, but they're looking at the long game, and they can see that, you know, veganic is probably where things are going. Plant-based is where things are going. So, so that is a value add.
Yeah, it is. You know, we had a conversation with the folks over at Food Story when we were looking at supplying them, and they were saying the same thing, that some customers would come into the restaurant and they're like, why does everything have to be so expensive? This was a few years ago, you know, and this is even without the cost of living crisis. And you know, so he was sort of saying that, you know, at the end of the day, people, they love the idea of things, but they don't like the price of things, you know. So, you know, I don't really think our prices were way off the scale or anything like that. I think they were quite...
No, you've got to find your own niche as well. You find your own market.
And to be honest, even with the microgreens, you know, we were told by the customers, you should be charging more for this. You know, so we actually had it priced lower. It was the customers that told us we'd be willing to pay more for your produce. you know, for your brand, for everything that you're doing. We are, and because of the quality, we're willing to pay more. And it was at their recommendation that we raised the price.
Yeah, because I think initially we were just on microgreens real quickly. I think we were doing about £1.65 or something like that.
And people were like, "You're crazy."
They were like, "It's too cheap. It's too cheap."
And then I think we went to like 270, and then people were still saying it's too cheap.
Yeah.
So we ended up at £3. Yeah.
So you know, go with what the customer says at the end of the day. But yeah, life is great at the moment for you know, for these movements, and especially at this time of Earth's history. Yeah, I just think the movement is going to get bigger and bigger. But anyway,
definitely, because, you know, look at the issues that we're having at the moment with, you know, the cost, the cost of food, the cost of living crisis, the war in Ukraine, you know, the whole, you know, like Compass, they're trying to reach net zero by, I can't remember the year, but there's a certain year. And so our farm, the way that they'll explain it to us is that we are a major part of that story. We're a major part. So for them, it's a value add to be able to go to their clients and actually say, we've got this farm and they grow for us. You know,
and they grow vegan.
They're this, they're that, and they're local, you know. So instead of them having to bring truckloads of veg from the Netherlands or France, Spain, or Europe or wherever, you know, we're literally just driving this stuff 45 minutes up the road. It gets on the ship and it's off to the offshore folks. So yes, we may be using, say, weed control fabric. We may even use some fossil fuels to run a steam generator. But let's look at the bigger picture. And if you look at the cost that the cost to the environment to bring the veg over from the Netherlands or from Europe against the little bit of fuel or maybe the weed control fabric that we may use in our farm, you know, and the, you know, our carbon footprint taking the stuff offshore is a huge difference.
Yeah.
So we're making a great dent in, you know, dealing with some of the environmental issues that we have. And Compass, they love it, you know. And so I think it's definitely the way forward. And I think if people want to get on board, now is the time. You know, we didn't really even know what we were sitting on, to be honest. We just wanted to farm because we felt convicted to, based on our lifestyle and our faith and things like that. So we were doing it for those motivations. And it's only we kind of sort of stumbled into the fact that, you know what, you're, you know, just as that quote was saying, you know, that there's blessings to be had, there's treasures in the store. And we didn't even really understand fully what that really meant, you know. And it's only now that we're doing it that we're starting to really receive the blessings of our labors, you know. So yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Sam.
No, that's great. That's the end of the questions. That's great. We had to have one kind of comment from Linda. It says, "You are an inspiration, so positive. Thank you for all your knowledge and experience."
Thank you guys for coming.
And listening and all the questions.
That was absolutely wonderful. And just for listeners and for Robert and Michelle as well, there is a veganic certification in the UK, and it's on our website, and it's called the Biocyclic Vegan Standard. So, and Lawrence, who asked that question, is actually the first farmer in the UK to be certified through the Biocyclic Vegan Standard. So Lawrence is a veganic cereal, a veganic cereal producer down in Dorset. So if you're interested in veganic certification, it does exist. And also Sam recently has been doing a survey of consumers to ask the question, would you be willing to pay more for veganically certified produce? And what percentage was it, Sam, of people who said they would pay more for it? Do you remember?
I think it ends up being about, was it maybe 42% yes, 42% maybe, and then the rest was no, I think.
Yeah, and they were willing. They were willing to pay, what was it, 20% more on average, Sam, or something like that?
I think most people went for 10% more. It was quite a mix, and also it depends on the product as well, and a lot of kind of
Yeah, so interesting. You're right. It's the start of this movement, and it's growing. So yeah, certification is available, and then you get the label on your food that says you're veganically certified. Yeah, great. So fantastic talk, guys. So inspiring. And loved having you. And just for everybody, here's our details. This will be up on the website tomorrow, the recording. So if you go to stockfreefarming.org/beyond the possible, you'll be able to get this recording and any other webinars that you might have missed. Next week, we have a very exciting crofter from Orkney, Mark Dickinson, who's going to share with us what he's doing in Orkney to grow great, nutritious food. And he's also growing veganically. If you have any questions, you can send them in. Any questions you didn't ask, you can send them to contact@stockfreefarming.org, contact@stockfreefarming.org. And Robert and Michelle are also part of our Stockfree advisory team, and we're thrilled about that. So they are available to give support, answer questions, and give guidance. So, well, thanks everybody for coming. We hope to see you next Tuesday for Mark Dickinson's talk. And thanks again to Robert and Michelle, absolutely brilliant. And have a lovely evening, everybody. Bye-bye now.
Thank
Bye.
you very much.
Thanks.
Everyone.
Bye, guys.